Okay.
Got it. Okay, I did get it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good evening. Welcome to the November 8th Revere Commission on Disabilities meeting. If we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If Pauline, if you could just do a roll call of the members.
Certainly, Ralph. So Ralph DeChico, Chair.
Present.
Pauline Perno, Vice Chair, is here. Asma Alfuda.
Present.
Mario Germanis.
Present.
Jason Barone.
He just walked through the door now. So
Gotcha.
he's here.
Yeah, he was running in traffic.
Okay. Robert Brown.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sophia Marmouche
Hold on. Let me mute this for a minute.
is our Sophia, our student here.
Sophia hasn't gotten in yet.
Okay.
As soon as she does, I will put, if she cuts, I'll let you know. She
Okay,
usually
great.
comes in as an attendee because she comes in through her phone.
Okay, great.
So as soon as I do, I'll move her over and let you know.
Okay, great. Well, we are all present and accounted for then.
Perfect. So we have a quorum. So we have a quorum for our meeting, which is great. Item 1 is just a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the October 11th, 2022 meeting. I sent everything to you, so hopefully all the members were able to review it. If there's any discrepancies or any changes, please let me know. We can take care of that now. And if not, if I can just have a motion to approve and then a second on it.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Asma,
I'll second it.
and Pauline will second it. Okay. Item number 2 is Lauren Buck, who's the chief of the Revere Health and Human Services, is going to be our first guest speaker for this month from the Commission on Disabilities. And we wanted to thank you, Lauren, for joining us. As Pauline says, you're the first person that's doing this, so bear with us, and we're going to learn as we go. And it's I'm going to have Pauline take over because this is her great idea on trying to get this going to help the disabled residents of Revere. So I will let Pauline take it over, and then you'll be able to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you. And Lauren, welcome to our November meeting of the Council on Disabilities. I am so excited to try to pilot this to get a little bit of extra oomph into our meetings so that we can reach maybe a few more people, a few more residents, family members, people who might just click on the TV and may not even know what they're watching, but something might just spark their interest. So welcome from all of us. And
thank you.
we had hoped to have like a list of questions, and then I thought about it and tried to put myself in your spot, and I said, maybe have you introduce yourself, who you are, how you got here, and what it means to you to be in the position that you're in, especially with these cold months and where we're coming kind of full circle and we're still basically in the pandemic. So why don't you take over from here, Lauren, please?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name's Lauren Buck. I started with the City of Revere back in October of 2020. My background is nursing. So before that, I worked as a nurse in hospitals and primary care offices, and got my master's in public health in Boston and ended up staying here. And obviously, we were like about 6 months into the pandemic when I took over as the director of public health for this position. And so ever since then, it's been a huge learning curve in terms of, figuring out how to tackle the pandemic. The vaccine kind of initiative started about 2 months after I started. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. But now that we're in a different phase of COVID, it's a lot more kind of building on the progress that we made as a public health department, working with a lot of other different departments for a lot of initiatives. Public health touches a lot of different things. So it's really just about a lot of collaboration, which has been amazing and is always great to collaborate with a lot of different departments. And, you know, I love this job. It's been a dream come true to do this kind of work. I think as a public health department, as a health and human services division, we can always continue to grow and serve more residents and be, you know, just learn from the mistakes we've made in the past, grow, get bigger, get more efficient, get better at serving our residents. And so that's what we're always looking to do. I'd love to talk about one specific program that I think Ralph and I have talked about before, which is the program that we do to service our homebound residents in Revere. I'd love to get some input about how we can improve the program from your perspective. You know, I think one of the things that we're always thinking about is how to make our services more accessible. I don't necessarily know if the public health department has done the best job at making our various programs as accessible as they should be, but I think we can always grow in that. So that's kind of just my thought process when coming here to talk to you all. So if you'd like me to kind of talk about that specific program first, or if you have a question for me, wherever you want to go from here.
Well, I think that that's really important, and maybe you can kind of, I had one other area that I would like you to touch upon, that kind of feeds into that also. And I guess because we are also coming into flu season, which is rapidly spreading very, very quickly. And from what I've seen in the hospitals and the wait times in urgent care, it is just a mess. So maybe if you could roll a little bit about the importance of still, you know, even if you've gotten the COVID vaccines, the importance of maybe staying up to date on the flu vaccines, whether you are a homebound person, whether you are a caregiver, no matter what your role is. And I think that that's really a good way to segue into that whole homebound programming and reaching the folks that, you know, are slipping through the cracks and are falling through. And we may, you know, we really have to find a way to get to them and make sure that they are taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you're exactly right, Pauline, that we are kind of in the winter upper respiratory sickness season. Before COVID, we had flu and RSV seasons. We have them still. They'll continue, you know, it will be all wrapped up in a big upper respiratory fall, winter season from here on out. We always encourage people to get flu, COVID, and COVID vaccines. We've had a vaccine clinic every week since December of 2021, and we still continue to do that. Our location is located at 50 Walnut, which does have a wheelchair ramp associated with it. We're in the WE office, which is right kind of on the left side of the 50 Walnut building. We give COVID vaccines, and actually starting next week, we're starting to give flu vaccines. I think something that it's important for the public to think about, and I'm just as guilty of this as the next person, is that I think getting a flu shot has kind of fallen by the wayside in these last 2 years. We don't think about it as much. We don't think about how important it is as much as we did before COVID. It is just as important, especially for vulnerable populations, especially for our elderly, especially for our, potentially medically compromised. It's super, super important to be up to date on all of your vaccines. If it doesn't prevent you from getting sick, it really will help you. It will prevent you from getting very sick or, severely ill or hospitalized. That's always the goal. So yes, I'd like to just stress the importance of those preventative measures of getting your flu and your COVID vaccines for the winter, especially before the holidays. It's a really, really good time to get both of those shots right now before the holiday season. Which kind of
correct?
You can get them on the same day. You can get them day after each other. There's no harm there. You might have a couple of sore arms. You might not feel great for 24 hours, but yes, you can get them together. You can get them apart. It doesn't matter.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I mean, if you can segue now into, what has Revere done to find these populations that we may not.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about this. So again, so keep in mind, I started this job in October 2020. Before I got here, there was a very small program to reach our homebound residents for flu shots. And remember, we didn't have COVID vaccines back then, so it was really just focused on flu, but it did happen at a very small level. When we came on and started doing COVID vaccine clinics, we recognized that the role of a public health department is really to reach the most vulnerable population, the most vulnerable residents in our city. And one of those is people who are potentially homebound. So back in like February of 2021 is when we started kind of generating a list of people who we thought would need COVID vaccines in their home. That list was generated really from people calling us. So that's obviously one way that we can know about people who are homebound, but it's not the best way, right? Because if people don't know we exist, they're not going to be calling us to get onto our homebound list. We've maintained that registry, and every year that's what we call through when we're going back for either COVID boosters, or this year we did COVID and flu together. So we just finished up our homebound trips last week. We had about 50 people on our registry who were interested in getting a COVID and flu shot from us in the home. Those numbers are significantly decreased from last year, and we think for a multitude of reasons. I think there's a potential, people can be homebound one year and not homebound the next year. Potentially, we could some people might have passed away in the year.
You froze a little bit, Lauren.
Senior elder service provider to see if they had any. I'm going to just stop my video real quick in case can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we reached out through Mystic Valley to see if they knew of any Revere residents. And so we kind of tried to gather names through that way. But I will be the first to say that there's probably so many homebound residents that we just haven't reached yet that we want to reach. We want to continue to get our registry of homebound, to grow the registry of homebound residents that we can reach. Now, for us right now, it's really focused on vaccines, but I mean, I think there's always a goal that potentially it could be a group, a population that we can reach out to for more than just vaccines. But for right now, it's really revolving around the flu and the COVID vaccines. So that's kind of where we are with it. It fluctuates year to year, but we continue to do homebound trips every fall. And if you have any suggestions about how we can make the program better, more robust, how to do more outreach, I'd absolutely love to hear it. And just know that for all of you, that it's a service that we provide, and we will continue to provide it year after year. So that's kind of where we are.
Well, I do know just from past history, it's very, very difficult to find those channels to find these individuals. I do know that just from where I've come from, and just having to keep generating a list and keeping that list up to date. Same thing kind of happens with the Snow Angel program, that maybe that could also be one avenue that could be used as a cross-reference. I'm sure you already do that.
Yes. No, I actually haven't. That's a fantastic idea.
And that might be something to look into. The other thing is just getting the information out there. And again, we're on Zoom, we are on the TV. However, there is a population out there that they don't have the media. They do have a television set. They may or may not know to tune in. I know that we as a group had talked previously about maybe was there a television service at, say, the adult day health centers, PACE, to see if we could get our information onto there, because I know that there is a population that goes there as well. I know that there's a couple of adult day. There's the Revere one that's down on the Parkway, and then there's the one that's up here by me, next to the Mirage restaurant that I did not know was a working restaurant. Who knew? I have to go in there someday. But there are these populations that I think that once you start to kind of take a an approach of like a spider web where it goes out and deeper and deeper and deeper, I think that that's how you're going to get the information out. I mean, it
Right.
would be wonderful. We could do like a mass mailing and say, what services do you think you need? Are you homebound? Do you have access to leaving the house? Are you disabled? Are you caring for someone who's disabled? Things such as that. But to do a mass mailing in a city of the
Well, yeah,
of
Pauline, what I did is I had a survey that I sent out, and we sent it out at the beginning of the year
Right.
through the elections department, but we weren't getting them back.
Right,
People
and that's
weren't.
the other thing is
Yeah,
you're
they weren't sending them
back.
back. I started in 2018. I created a survey. Are you homebound? I still have the survey, and I'm willing to share that with Lauren, and maybe we can tweak it, and maybe there's something else that we can do, because, in order for us to know what people need and who, what type of disabilities they have and what they're looking for, we really need them to reach out to us so that we know we can have a database on file, for somewhat. They don't have to really let us know everything, but as long as we have a baseline
Right.
of what's needed and who's out there, which we started creating a lot of that with COVID, with the wellness committee that we did. But we have to start someplace, and it's always great to be proactive than reactive, which we found out.
Any way that survey could be maybe brought to the pharmacies, and so as people are picking up information in the farm, picking up whether they're picking up medication um or any kind of whatever end up going to Walgreens. I know myself, I'm in probably Walgreens and or Rite Aid at least 3 to 4 times a week. Any way that information, like an informational, could be brought on site to places that that people frequent. And again, you're not necessarily going to get your disabled population or your homebound population or your elderly population, but you may get someone who's in contact with that person. So I'm just thinking of avenues that I have used in the past in past lives, working as a public health nurse, things that we did in ways that we got our information out there. Did we get a huge response? No, but any response is better than not having that information. So, I mean, things such as that might at some point be helpful, but certainly trying to brainstorm and to try to figure out ways to flesh out that population that we're trying to target and trying to get a hold of so that they can be cared for, so that they can receive some services, so that we can link them in. And I think that that's
Yeah.
the important piece.
Yeah, and I mean, even just coming on to chat with you all, I think is a great first step. And I agree with you that any type of communication that asks for people to do, for people to, take some action and send something back, you're always going to potentially not have a ton of response on. And I totally get it, because, we're all like that too. But I agree. I think it's worth thinking about, it's worth thinking about how, I think what you're talking about is kind of like a special needs registry. And there's some precedent out there for cities doing something like that. I think we'd have to really research the best way to do it, but there's some work in that space that we could spend some time thinking about.
Well,
Right.
I agree. I think there's another aspect of that is people like myself who are blind that were exposed to people because of my job having to go in, unfortunately, thanks to Baker at the time, is not helping, because I was, there was no way to protect myself. And unfortunately, the people with disabilities were marginalized. Unfortunately, doctors were so afraid of the CDC, and I think we need to change that too. So that, I think on a local level, that would help, because then they could start talking to them and saying, we need to get doctors to understand when there's an emergency like that, those populations are at high risk, because I feel like I was put behind by someone like myself, let's say, being blind. It puts in a whole nother aspect behind somebody that, and I mean this respectfully, that smoked. Whereas I was not in that population. They didn't look at people like myself to say, hey, wait a minute, I need to get vaccinated so that I can be out, because I don't know where the 6-foot rule is. I don't know if people are following it. and I can't tell if someone is wearing the proper mask. So I'm very vulnerable, or people like myself or other people in wheelchairs were in that vulnerable spot and were not put on that list. And only because of the city of Revere, I got it done. Thank God, because they took my health seriously. Doctors were really petrified. I mean, it was hard to get anybody to cooperate. So it's very frustrating because I ended up getting COVID and was out of work for almost 2 months. So it puts you in a whole nother perspective. So I appreciate that you're here. So maybe we can change some of that, both on a local level, but maybe get CDC to wake up, because that's what they were there for. And I don't know, I just feel like they kind of let us down at that point. I hate to say it, and for the first time meeting you, so.
No, I'm glad to hear your it's such a valuable perspective, and thanks for sharing that. And yeah, those were some interesting times back then. And I think looking back on it, I think a lot of decisions could have been made differently, you know, now that we have some hindsight, and it's always good to hear. Thank you for sharing.
Not a problem. Appreciate it.
So any other thoughts? I mean, that's like a huge piece of a very large puzzle that you've just touched upon. And certainly, you know, the vaccine portion of that has to be at the forefront of everybody's mind, whether you're going to get your vaccine, whether you are shying away from it for whatever reason, and that has no platform here. I'm not judging anybody. Everybody has their own thought process, but certainly, you know, I too am a nurse, and coming from once September hits, you start thinking in terms of, you know, the sepsis and the flu, and now on top of it, COVID and the RSV. And people, I know that I've seen all of the commercials for RSV, and I read a lot about the postings for RSV, especially in preemies and in children, and you know, people who are already compromised. But I think that the other thing that we need to look at is there's a whole host of other things out there. And I think that looking globally about what is available to people, and getting them, the importance of getting them linked into a system where there's someone that there's a point of contact, that if they need something, they can say, oh, wait, I can call this number and I know I'll get an answer. And if they don't have the answer, they'll find it and get back to me. And I think that that's really what needs to be focused upon as well. But certainly I am more than excited that you were our first guest. You were my choice for first guest, and yay, I won. And that's important to me. And I think because of the season, I think it is extremely important, but it's also, you know, because you are health and human services, it's a whole spectrum, and it's something that's to be honored, and something to really, people need to pay attention. And I think that you're doing a great job, and your department's doing a wonderful job. And I'm thankful that you're here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, always looking to grow and get better. And I think, like I said, hopefully this is the first of just a long collaboration.
Hope so. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Yes, yeah. So I remember, Lauren, we had before like a flu clinic for the children, but did we have any one especially for kids with disability? If we can just like have them come, and we have like a special cartoon character come that day, so we can reach to more children and have it special for the kids with special need.
We haven't had a special needs flu clinic for kids. We do make the clinic drive-through for the kiddos. So we do it at Garfield, and we just keep the kiddos in the car. Obviously, that's not exactly addressing what you're talking about, but I do think it makes it somewhat more accessible. But no, that's something that we can grow on. I mean, we had our flu clinic for the kiddos this past weekend, and I think this just reflects what I said earlier in the meeting. We didn't actually get a huge turnout. And in the past, we've had a really big turnout, and completely free of charge, no insurance needed, tons of different languages available, and still not a lot of people came. And I think it's just because flu is such on the back burner for people. There's a lot of fatigue around, preventative medicine, especially vaccines right now. But yeah, something to consider, Asma. That's a really good point that I think we could potentially incorporate.
Thank you.
One
I
thing
think
that
it's
I do
also-
like, yeah, one thing that I do like about the drive-through clinics, especially for children, is and the point that I wanted to make to Asma too. It's good that there are a lot of children with different disabilities that are that don't like to be in large crowds, or they have sensory issues. So when they're in their own vehicle, they're in their own environment. They don't have to go into another strange place. So it makes it a lot easier for them. But as to the point with the character, maybe if there's a character outside, that might be good. That walks by and waves as they do it, or something like that as they're doing a drive through a child's clinic, to make it a lot more inviting. But I would gear towards not having an indoor one for children with disabilities and have it in the vehicles. This way they're in their own environment, because when you take them out of into another environment, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety for certain people with disabilities. But yeah, character on the outside, while they're in the line walking by. And I'm sure we could do something with the rec center because they used to have costumes or something like that.
Yep, great idea.
I think the other part of it is the misinformation that's put out. I can't tell you how many people will say, well, I won't get the flu shot because I'm going to get sick from it. That's really not helping. And same with vaccines. And I mean, my aunt's a nurse, so she would say to me, people will say to me, oh, isn't that where they're going to put the tracker? That's even with the vaccine, that's what they would say. And they say the same thing. So I think that's where you're seeing the problem, is when you see that, when statements like that come out. But the point out she made to him was, well, your phone is already a tracker. So I don't know. It's frustrating because I see they allow people, and it's the same theory of, you can go on the internet and you can actually not just learn how to make bomb-making materials, but you can also learn how to steal from a retail store. But they consider that free speech. So go figure that one out. So they're putting out stuff that's not even accurate. You know what I mean? So I don't know. They got to fix that part of it. I think the health community needs to start getting upset, because when you put out something that's not accurate, that causes people to not trust, but it also causes people to be afraid, and then causes people to not want to go see medical professionals at the same time. So I think that's where some of that's coming from. Why you probably didn't get the list either. A bunch of people like that.
Any other members have any other questions or comments for Lauren? Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you,
No,
Lauren. We
yeah.
really appreciate it.
That's
Thank you
great.
very much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night now.
What's left?
Okay. So item number 3 is updates and next steps from the October meeting. And what I have on here is any updates from Pauline regarding and the calendar work she's doing for future monthly guest speakers. So I'll let Pauline take it from there.
Yep, I'm just waiting on a couple of responses back. And the one question I had, we're not just limiting this to Revere individuals. We're also looking for outside agencies.
Yep.
As guess. Okay, thank you. That's all the
Yep.
clarification I need.
Yep.
So as soon as I have, I'm trying to get it in like clumps so that we have like December and January will be taken care of, and then February, March, so that we'll have like 2 and 2 and 2, so that if folks want to maybe spearhead some questions. I had a list of questions, but I think that kind of letting
This worked better this way.
our guests kind of take off with it, and then as they're talking, us thinking, I think that actually works a whole lot better. So as soon as I have a couple of next guest speakers, I will be sending out an email.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well,
Next update or next step is if there was any follow-up or any update information regarding therapy dog agencies from either Pauline or Robert.
Go ahead, Pauline.
No, all I was going to say is I have some information coming in from a woman. She's actually a friend of my aunt's who she trains rescue dogs, and she has a dog that she is just finishing the 10-step program with. She doesn't live in this area, but she is sending me some information about suitability of breed and what to look for and that kind of stuff. I was also trying to do some research on funding, and it, because there is, of course, a price to everything you do. So I'm waiting to get some information back on that as well. But I do have that one lead, this woman, and she's very, very well versed. She has placed therapy dogs in several of her communities surrounding her. She's on the South Shore. So she has done this before. So I'm hoping once she gets back to me with some additional information, we might be going in the right direction with this.
Yeah, because once we do that, then we maybe can reach out to Captain Amy O'Hara with the new program that they're starting to put together for issues that are people tend to call the Revere Police at 911, but it's basically almost like crisis prevention.
Yeah.
And possibly a therapy dog could also assist in something like that. And maybe there's some way of grant funding that they could also get a therapy dog into that program.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
So we could possibly talk about that with Captain O'Hara. Anything you had on that, Robert?
So just to more or less bounce off of what Pauline said, I was, I've been talking with a couple of people via email as well as going through their social medias, and it seems that it's, the metaphorical red tape of getting it to work out perfectly, but as well as the logistics of the environment and getting the approval, as well as finding out everything and who's on board to get them to come in and make sure that everything works out. It seems more of an extenuous process to do this, but I think it can definitely be done, but I think it might have to be brought to the attention of a higher level. And also with you mentioning the police, I was also looking around for, I guess we'll say a therapy specialist in the sense about contacting with the police department about if there's any calls regarding kids, younger kids with issues, that a normal police officer may not know how to work with. Depending on the environment, we're not saying, not just at home, whether it's at a school or, in a situation like that.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or any questions on it? Any other member? I just want to check something. I for some reason, my participation thing, I just wanted to make sure something wasn't there. Okay. I'm going to skip to item number 5 for a minute, and then I'll come back to item number 4. Item number 5 was the CODA, the Commission of Disabilities Alliance. There was a monthly Zoom meeting that I attended, and this month it was November 2nd. Basically, there was just discussions and questions regarding cities and towns transition plans, such as what tends to get done is what they basically do is just update their Schedule A. The City of Revere, we did a transition plan a couple of years ago on all the municipal buildings, and that is in the hands of the mayor's office and the DPW department. So I know they've been going through it, like the Legion building was done. There's a new accessible ramp at the front of the Legion building, and they've been putting accessible doors at City Hall. So they've been going through that list and making sure any work that's getting done is coming off of that pick list of the transition plan for things that were notated on there. So at some point, I'm gonna see if I can have a sit down with someone to see if we can update that Schedule A, so we can see if anything could be checked off of that transition plan of things that were done. So that was one of the things that was discussed by cities and towns. Another discussion that was brought up by a couple of various cities and towns is they were having issues with active commission members and also filling vacancies. They were having issues with not being able to have a quorum for their meetings due to not having enough, either not having enough members on their commission or having enough members on the commission but not attending their meetings. The issue with them not having enough members on their commission is a few of the cities were not having the full-fledged cooperation from their, if it was a city with their correct mayor's office, or if it was a town, the town administrators being able to go through the applications of applicants that people wanted to become on the Commission of Disabilities to have them be appointed. One of the cities and towns, there's been over a year that applicants have put in their names and they still have not been interviewed or vetted by their city's administration to bring them on as members of the Commission on Disabilities. But they also said that's not just part and parcel to the Commission on Disabilities in their towns. It happens with a lot of the commissions and groups in their cities or towns. So that was the majority of that meeting. The cities and towns that were complaining about that. So that's all that there was for that month's CODA. So with item 5 being completed, I will go back to item 4, which was the CPAC October updates, November, December events. There was nothing, as you've seen in the meeting, in time for the meeting agenda. So Robert Brown will update us on that. So I'll turn it over to him.
Yep. So still, as of right now, we still have our meeting on Thursday, the 17th, next week at 6 p.m. at the Commons. We'll have it done via Zoom as well. And it is the topic of therapeutic strategies for the holidays coming up. And we'll have a guest speaker. They'll be talking about the some of the ways of controlling an environment so that the children or whomever can't, avoiding getting overstimulated and any kind of harm in that way for the holidays. And as well as we are still planning on December 17th for our winter party at the Park and Recs.
Okay. Is anything else?
As of right now, that's all we have.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay.
And do you have a time for that party, the winter party, Robert?
I believe it's 5 to 7:30.
Okay.
5 p.m. to 7:30. Yes.
The winter party. What was the date on that?
The 17th of December, Saturday.
And how is that information going to get out to people? Is that just through members of CPAC, or?
We'll be we'll be putting it out through the outlets of our social media channels, as well as we're going to try and use, I guess we'll use the word as liaisons at some of the schools to let them know.
Right. Okay.
And we'll also, of course, get flyers made up to let everybody know.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be how we would try and do that as best as we can. And as well as have, like the parks, make sure they post it and around that realm, and see if we can have some extra posters made up, and we'll put them at City Hall and stuff like that.
And you said this is going to be at the Parks and Rec?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sounds like fun.
Okay. All right. Item number 6, communications. I have received some communications. Well, one communication. that I am going to read. It is from Joanne M. Rizzo, the Director of Student Services and involved with CPAC. I hope this email finds you well. On behalf of Revere CPAC, and I also had a conversation with her, CPAC in the Revere Public Schools, I wanted to reach out and provide clarification regarding misinformation that was recently reported to you in the Revere Commission on Disabilities by CPAC President Robert Brown. At your recent Commission on Disabilities meeting, Mr. Brown stated that CPAC was unable to hold meetings via Zoom. Mr. Brown was incorrect in the statement. Revere CPAC provides access to all of its meetings via Zoom. We share the Zoom information meetings via our flyers, family school communications, and on our social media platforms. And she attached a sample of the email. Because I guess at that meeting you had stated that the school department does not allow CPAC to use the school's Zoom account because you're a volunteer organization. And we had a long conversation, me and Mrs. Rizzo, and I remember talking to you that CPAC is exactly what it is. It's both for it's a partnership between the special education department and the parents' education, and the parents of the students. So that's why I had mentioned that you would have needed to reach out to Joanna Rizzo and Dr. Gallucci, because CPAC is not you want to state if it's a volunteer, but it really isn't. It's an offspring of the special education department. So that's why the Zoom account should be able to be used. So I didn't see what the journal wrote, but it was also in the journal that stated what was stated at the meeting. So she just wanted me to make a clarification that the school department does allow Zoom to be used for all the CPAC meetings, so that we could reach all the residents at any time that cannot be there in person, especially with parents with students with disabilities. It does make it hard for them to be in person, and because of childcare and whatnot. So I wanted to, make that clarification from the district on behalf of the district through Joanna Rizzo. That you said anytime they have any questions, to please feel free to reach out to her.
Question to Robert: when you talked about that, where did you get that they weren't allowed you use the account? Because it seems interesting that would change now, and I'm glad, but that should be that way to begin with, as we had talked about.
So this is clear. That wasn't in what the regards to.
Yeah.
Was not being able to do it through Zoom. The issue that we were having, that what I was referring to, was the fact that a full-time account, as in the ones that we use, is limited.
Right.
They're all that's what I meant by the Zoom account. Because that's
actually, Robert, you said that you have a 45-minute account and the school would not let you use their full account. And they said they've always used their full account for any Zoom meetings. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pauline, or anybody, because I know some of their meetings in the past that I've watched have gone on for more than an hour.
45 minutes, yes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, my question on that would be, I just wanted to make sure that was it someone from the school department that originally told them we couldn't do that. Because if that was true, then we need to clarify that. And if she's accurate, we've got it in writing now, so there can't be any question to that. But
no, and I completely understand. I'm pretty. Our last meeting, the Zoom was cut short because of it wasn't the full time. So this is what I was.
Yeah, which hopefully you now have access. I would reach out to Rizzo and get that information so you can have access to that account of whoever is going to facilitate it, so there shouldn't be a limit. I mean, you can't, this isn't like just a couple people chatting. This is a group thing. So it needs to have no limit, because things can take longer, especially with people that might take them long to formulate their thoughts. So.
And also, if you're paying, if you're getting guest speakers in, you want to make sure that the coverage is comprehensive. There's nothing worse than having an expert or someone who is noted in their field for doing these things and only being able to give, up until 45 minutes, and then the rest of it just goes by the wayside. That's not fair on all accounts. So I think it's really, sorry about that. I really think that, clarification and communication is always the best way to go with all of this. And, hopefully going forth, you all with CPAC will have what you need to provide the most comprehensive and most complete information to all of your members and all of, the people that you're trying to reach out to, with the support of, everyone involved. So I'm hoping that clarifies and quantifies what's going on.
Right, right. Yeah, that's why when I spoke to you over the summer, I said when you first took over CPAC, I said you want to reach out to Joanna Rizzo and Dr. Galucci, because they do have a Zoom account that they allow CPAC to use. That's the full program, and that's, whether that was done or not by you, I can't say, but I can only direct you in the correct way. But for the 45-minute one, you had clearly stated that they don't allow, the school department does not allow you to use the school's Zoom account because you are a volunteer committee.
Well, I wanted to make sure that
yeah,
wasn't, I just want to make sure he wasn't getting wrong information, because if it was somebody other than the two of them that told him that would put this in a different light. That's why I was trying to get the clarification. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't somebody who worked for the school that doesn't have authority to be saying that,
right,
or maybe was informed and giving Robert wrong information, which then puts him in a disadvantage of getting the correct, because that's not fair, because then he's not able to deliver publicly here what is really going on. And that's why I was concerned. I wanted to make sure it wasn't, because if it was one of the two of them, then that would put it in a different context. And I just wanted to make sure if it was a school employee that maybe needs to be educated. That's what I was concerned with, because that seems to happen a lot on government as a whole state.
Yeah, well, those are the only two people that you're supposed to reach out to for CPAC anyway in the school department. Is Joanne is involved in special education, and Dr. Galucci is in charge of special education. So those are the only two people that you're supposed to be putting in charge with. Asma, you would know that too. Joanne has been there for umpteen years. Joanne Rizzo. So
Yes.
I only try passing on the best information that I know to help everybody. So that's all I wanted to do on that. So I just wanted to make it clear that the school department does allow CPAC to use their full Zoom account for all their meetings, because all this information needs to be out there for all of the volunteers. The second question that I received, and I don't know if it wasn't you, Asma. I had a couple of phone calls, and I'm kind of curious as to why they reached out to me in the Commission on Disabilities and not CPAC, but it's probably because their children are disabled. And I said I would ask, is they were wondering why there was no Halloween event for students with disabilities this year.
I don't have any idea, actually.
No, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
ask Robert. Yeah, because I had asked you when we said we would ask Robert if he knows the reason for that.
We weren't able to finalize any of the logistics of it, and the date that we originally had planned is when the Park and Recreations had their trunk or treat.
Okay. So it was originally supposed to be planned for that day.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. This way they know about that. Okay. I don't see anybody else that popped in here. Okay, anybody else? That's the only communication that I have. Item number 7 is any commission members' late items. I'm not sure if anybody has any late items that they wanted to talk about.
I just want to mention, it's not necessarily, it's just a note of interest. Now that it's getting darker earlier, I've noticed that the traffic it's always been heavy anyway, but I was involved. I was not in an accident, but the turnaround as you enter into Wonderland parking garage with the bus lane that comes from like
North Shore Road,
yeah,
like coming
coming
from,
towards Wonderland from
Yeah.
say like
the old Stearns Hardware.
um as you're coming around there, there is a designated bus lane for a reason, and there was a lot of traffic entering the traffic circle. I was one that was in the left-hand lane trying to get into the traffic circle, and 4 cars, including an MBTA ride van, decided to enter the bus lane and cut off the rest of the cars trying to enter into the circle. So just as a reminder, the bus lane is there for a reason, because the bus does have schedules. And, I'm the first one to say about bus schedules, but just a reminder, it is getting darker. There were several people crossing the street. There were cars in lanes that should not have been in that lane. Just be mindful, everybody, that, whether you're driving, whether you're walking, if you're walking, please get off of your cell phones and pay attention to the traffic, because I had a young woman just step off a curb right in front of my car. I wasn't even moving, but she never looked. She never bothered. And it was a young woman, an able-bodied woman. But had she been hearing impaired and I blew my horn at her, she would not necessarily have heard it. But it was not me that was moving. The car next to me came speeding up and trying to get in. So just a reminder, it's getting darker earlier. People are walking, people are driving. The traffic is horrific in the city. Let's face it. So just let's all be mindful of each other and take a moment before you step on the gas and something happens that shouldn't. That's my rant for the night.
Any other commission members have any late items they wanted to discuss?
I was thinking, Ralph, one thing I've noticed, and it really kind of was surprising to me, that federally, there's a Schedule A for people with disabilities to be hired without going through the full competitive process. So that there's an incentive to try to get them, get hired and make the agencies better. Even New York has something like that, but Mass has never adopted anything like that. So it's kind of weird that we don't have something like that.
Well, it broke up at the beginning. It might have just been my end.
Yeah, okay. So there's
I was just going to say, repeat it, please.
Yes. So there's under federal regulation, they want to have 2% of the population of agencies all covered by people with disabilities, hired wise. But there's what's called a non-competitive section of the hiring process where they have a Schedule A use, or a Schedule A letter that they use for part of that. And even New York State has something like that for state employment. But in Mass, we don't even have anything adopted like that. So they're subject to brutal interviews in some cases, because I don't know if anyone's ever interviewed for the state or any other. It's not like most interviewing processes.
So it's a state job. It's a state agency for a job.
Yeah.
Private sector.
Yeah, it's
so the state of New York is a 2%, but the state of Massachusetts does not have anything like that.
Right. They some agencies do strive. I know the DOT tries. Some of it is whether people declare or not, but it's also, but to even just get hired, I'm just saying it's a brutal process in New York. I'm just surprised that Mass has never delivered anything even remotely close to that, where there's a non-competitive process for those with disabilities. Because
do you have that law that New York has?
I can. If you find it too, let me know. I mean, I know you're digging more than I am. I have to be careful what I do at work. So, but I do try to dig.
If it can be found, I could bring it. I could bring it to my CODA monthly meeting, and CODA is the Disability Policy Consortium, and they find things, and they try and file bills with the legislature to try and to find things. So if I can find something that's done in another state, I can bring it up to them, and they can take a look at it and see if there's a disparity or something that should be done in this state, that with the state agencies for jobs that's being done in another state but not being done here.
Yep,
But
that would be good. Yeah, I mean, there's, it's just interesting. Just like here, the state here does not have, like Connecticut adopted, in addition to federal buildings for those that do the vending and
yeah, well,
yeah.
what it is, because one thing I know because of like ADA laws and whatnot, federal has certain laws, and then the Massachusetts has laws. Anything that's federal, the state can have all their own laws, and the state laws supersede anything that's federal.
Right.
And one thing with the ADA laws is the state of Massachusetts is ADA laws are more strict and more stringent than the federal ADA laws.
Yeah. That I agree to some level on that, but I'm talking about even like the vending in Connecticut. They did, if I was part of the Randolph Shepherd program, they use state buildings. Here, you're not required to offer a state building first, which I find very interesting.
Right.
But
Point I'm trying to make is like we're more stringent than federal on one thing, but on others we're not even up to par from what you're saying. Federal is more, yeah.
It's just like, what are we doing here? We want to
Right.
set the example. We do it in a lot of other things.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were one of the last states to do seatbelt requirements. I mean,
Right.
back.
Exactly.
So I'm just looking at, I don't know. I'm just looking at the aspect of, if we want to see that needle move,
right,
for disabled people working, I don't know. We need a lot of education too, because, as my wife pointed out to me, that one of the coworkers of hers that is blind that actually got hired for Trader Joe's, one of the employers that she had, they wouldn't give her the job because they were afraid of her taking the stairs.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of work to do. I mean, we've done a lot.
I think that's why Massachusetts tries to cover themselves. They have the non-disclosure that you don't have to disclose you have a disability. So they try and circumvent it by having that law in there, where they should just get rid of that and have the 2%, like you're saying, because they circumvent it by saying, well, you don't have to disclose. So by you not having to disclose, that covers the employer. So if you disclose, that opens up a loophole to them that they don't have to hire you, because then they can say, oh, well, because of this, you disclose this and we don't want to have to hire you.
Yeah, well, that's along the same lines of them putting driver's license requirement for a job that doesn't really require it.
Exactly. Totally understand. Yeah, so if you find it or anybody else finds that, just pass it on to me, and then I can bring it up with my my CODA.
It's called the Schedule A letter, if anyone's looking into it. So they use it on the city level too for the city of New York. So it helps people with disabilities get hired because it's not as competitive. Not to say that they're given a free pass. It's just they're not put through all of the same, because it's you and I know
they get a different weight to it's almost like a different weight.
Yep, and that they're get a better chance of getting hired because you just like you and I know that those that have autism tend to be treated differently. It's the same thing. It's just ignorance, unfortunately, breeds an excuse.
Exactly. Totally understood.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything else? I just have one thing that one late item that I just want to mention, but I'll let anybody else talk if they have anything first. I just want to remind, because I've been getting a lot of calls with people. I don't know if they don't understand it or they don't read the rules and regulations for handicap placards. But a handicap placard does not allow you to park anywhere, unfortunately, anywhere that you want. A handicap placard only exempts you for parking at a meter and paying for a meter. It does not exempt you from paying to park in a parking garage. It does not exempt you to park in a neighborhood that's resident parking only. I can't tell you how many calls I'm getting from people saying the law says I can park anywhere. When a sign is posted that it's resident only parking or street cleaning or snow emergency or anything like that, that supersedes anything. So even though you have a handicap placard, you cannot park there. If it's resident only parking, you can't park there if you don't have a resident sticker. So that's a misconception. And if anybody looks at when they apply for a handicap placard or when they get a renewal, a letter comes with it that states that any posted sign supersedes a handicapped placard. Also, one other thing that I wanted to mention, a handicap placard, and I do this every couple of months, a handicap placard is not supposed to be hanging from your rear view mirror in your car while you are driving. Any police officer, state, local sheriff, or anything can pull you over and give you a ticket. That's clearly stated on the registry of motor vehicles when they send you the placard. It clearly states it. That is considered a moving violation. So please, 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 anytime I see anybody driving with a handicap placard, if I'm anywhere, I just try and tell them, you know, I'm on the Commission of Disabilities. If you don't want to believe me, please look into the registry of motor vehicles. It came with the renewal of your placard. It's been like this for years. You're not supposed to drive with the handicap placard on your rear view mirror. But I've talked to other cities and town Commission on Disabilities, and they have residents that are complaining that they're getting tickets for it. And they clearly tell them too, it's stated that you cannot drive with a handicap placard on the mirror.
I will reiterate that as a state employee.
Thank you.
At those calls, do not do it. You will get charged, and no, there will not be an exception. No, you
Thank
will
you.
not get money back. And it is
I knew I had you here for a reason, Jason.
for abuse
Right.
of handicap placards. We've gotten calls on that. Do not allow anyone to use your placard. And any family member that is caught doing that, it is a $500 fine, and that placard can be taken away. People
And
don't know.
as working for the state too, can you also reinforce my other thing? You cannot have somebody waiting in a car for you with a handicap placard if you are not the disabled person, or you cannot even be pulled in a handicap parking spot if you do not have a placard because you're just waiting there. That is against the law.
Correct. You need the placard or plates, and you need to be mindful of that. And if you have disabled parking plates, if you are not the disabled person, do not park in a handicapped space. You again can be in serious violation, with your license, but also could potentially get the car towed. So do not do it. That is
And a $500 fine. And the
Yep.
$500 fine.
You got it. And then the placard eventually can be taken away. And so you're not helping yourself. So
Thank
please, people, do not do it. And yes, your license, if you do not pay the tickets that go associated with that, can be suspended.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. See, I knew there's a reason why I have you here.
Yeah, just try to.
I try telling everybody because I don't want to see anybody getting in an unnecessary ticket.
No.
Exactly.
So that's my public address announcement for this month. All
Excellent.
right. So we already did most of those. So item number 8, residents' concerns, issues. I don't have any. Item number 9, next steps. The only next steps is we're going to see about having a guest speaker for next month.
Yep.
And item number 10 is the reminder, and I will read it quickly. As the Commission of Disabilities office works remotely, residents can speak to staff from our 311 Constituent Service Center Monday through Friday. When you call our office at 781-286-8267, they will be able to answer most of your questions, but if they are unable to, or if you would like a call back from our department, please ask to be transferred to the Disabilities Office voicemail, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible. As always, please let us know if you would like something discussed or brought up and added to our monthly meeting agenda. You can let us know if you'd like to speak on any issues or concerns. The Commission on Disabilities is here to help and assist all the disabled residents and families of Revere. One last thing that I wanted to mention too, because I should have mentioned it when I was on my RMV kick. Cities and towns do not have control for you applying for a handicap placard. That is only done through the registry of motor vehicles. So I also wanted to remind that. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion.
Pauline in a second,
Second, yeah.
and Asma seconds it. Our next meeting via Zoom will be Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 at 6 p.m. I just wanted to wish everyone that celebrates to have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December. Thank you again. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye now.
Yeah, bye.